Hello and welcome to Almost 30 Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Krista Williams. And if you've been rocking with me for a long time, welcome back. I love you so much. We've been around since 2016. So we started podcasting, my best friend and co-host, Lindsay, and I, when podcasting wasn't cool. It was my passion. It was my excitement. I just was called to the medium because I love deep conversations. I love growth. I love transformation. I love expanding my mind. I love learning and I love connecting with people. So we started Almost 30 and we've been around for quite a while. And we are a podcast that explores conversations that expand your mind and consciousness, all the things that I love doing. So Lindsay and I have amazing interviews with powerful guests, teachers, leaders, healers. And then we also do solo episodes where she and I talk and connect on real life things. We try and be as vulnerable as possible about this human experience here on earth and all the things that we go through. And also I like to do teaching episodes where I talk about things that I'm talking about with my one-on-one clients, in my community, with my followers, with all the people that I engage with. And today's episode is one of those. So I'm going to be talking to you guys about something that I'm obsessed with, something that I've been talking about for a few months now with my community, and that is all about timelines. So when my broadcast channel girlies were asking me questions about timelines, I said, hey, give me more questions. Let's have a full deep dive conversation about timelines, what they are, how to timeline hop, how to get out of a timeline, how to get on the best timeline, and how to really change our lives by understanding timelines. I knew that I wanted to do a deeper dive in a solo episode because there's so much here. And whenever I notice a conversation getting hot in the zeitgeist, I want to really dive in and I want to talk about things so we can be clear that we can come at things from a place of love and self-acceptance and empowerment, and just the intention is good. Because what can often happen in this self-development spirituality space is that people can kind of take things and run with them in a way that doesn't actually serve us. As an example, in this self-help space, if you are doing things from the belief that you are not enough, from the belief that you are not good enough, from the belief that you need to change yourself, from the lack mindset, from the self-hatred mindset, you are never going to get where you want to go. How you do the work is the work. How you do the work is the work. So the energy behind things is actually going to create the result rather than just the mind belief of something. So if we are wanting to change our body, as an example, if we are wanting to transform our body, but we actually literally hate our body and we're trying to transform it from a place of hate, it's never going to last. This is why diets do not work, because people try and change their body from a place of self-hatred rather than a place of self-love. And that's always just a Band-Aid. That's never the truth. So when we can come and try and transform our lives or change from a place of self-love over self-hate, that's when true transformation happens. And that's when long-standing, withstanding results are felt and seen in our lives. I know that you all have areas and places in your life that you want to change, evolve, and grow. Things that you want to step away from, step out of, step into, step side to side with. I know you guys have so much about your life that you love and also that you maybe hate, dislike, disdain. So what I want to be clear about timeline work when we talk about this is that we're going to be coming at it from a place of self-love, of excitement, of possibility, of joy, rather than wanting to escape our lives. So we want to use that escape route as a new timeline. You're never going to be able to escape your life and hate your life into a new timeline. You could create a new timeline, but it's not going to be the timeline that you want at all. And the way that I'm going to be running this episode too is I'm going to be going pretty stream of consciousness. I'm just going to be teaching you guys what I've learned over the past from my teachers, what I've learned over the past from my own spiritual work, what I've learned over the past from doing one-on-one work with many women in the world, and from what I've learned just from my own channeling and my own spiritual practices. So I'm going to be kind of casual with things. I want this to feel like we're having a conversation. I want you to get a lot of information and insight from it. But I'm just going to kind of go off the cuff and just kind of see what comes through and what lands, because I feel like that's just the best for things like this. So let's talk about what a timeline is. So when we think about timelines, when we think about some of the things that we're seeing online, a timeline is really an energy pathway that's opened or created when you make a choice in your life. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie The Butterfly Effect, where basically you kind of go through what happens if you made one different decision and you go along the path of that new timeline. It's like one choice leads to one other thing that leads to one other thing, that none of these domino effect things would ever happen if you didn't make that one choice. As an example, Friday night, I went out for a friend's birthday. I decided to stay out pretty late. I had so much fun. I met someone. I also had a glass of wine. I went to bed really late. And all of these decisions had impact on my next day. I met new people who I now have in my orbit and in my life. I slept in later than I would have liked to. So that impacted my workouts. It impacted my energy for the day. It impacted how I showed up that day. And being in this new energy of the new people and of the decisions that I made was essentially a new timeline in a small way. I think when you've been in a relationship with someone and you break up with someone, you also know what it feels like to change timelines. You may have remembered that I have talked about my divorce quite a bit. Maybe not a lot, maybe a lot. I don't really know, whatever. But I was with someone in a relationship for 10 years and then we got married and got divorced. And that choice to divorce was essentially choosing a very different timeline than if I would have stayed in that relationship. That life would have been different. We would have maybe got a house or had kids or hated each other for the rest of our lives, which would have made me be out of alignment for my job or made me lose friendships or made me lose hair or made me gain weight or whatever the things were, because I would have been in a relationship that I didn't feel good in. But your timelines can show up in a lot of different ways. There's like smaller timelines that you can really fine tune in. And then there's the bigger timelines that can impact so much of our lives. But if we think about it from a soul level, we exist in a time space reality, which means that we are a co creator that's consciously choosing different timelines and different experiences. Being conscious and a conscious being is so important here because before you were conscious, your timelines were essentially chosen for you. Whether that's your soul chose your timelines, whether you believe God chose your timelines, whether you believe society chose your timelines were essentially playing out, maybe from your Akashic records, maybe from your ancestors, maybe from the collective, without you essentially knowing. So when we become conscious creators of our life and we become consciously in choice of our life, this is when we can choose our reality and choose our timelines. So the beauty of understanding and learning about timelines, and the reason why we're going to be talking about this today, is because when we can play with timelines and get really in the choice and in the co-creation of timelines and really see our future and really work with this energy and this magic, you can really lean into creating a life you love. So this is going along with visualization. This is going along with manifestation. This is going along with deep spiritual work of aligning to your soul path, of aligning to your highest timeline. You know, the phrase that people say, aligning to your highest timeline basically means that you are aligning your energy field, the energy field that you exist in now, to the highest timeline expression of your soul. So our souls can come in and live and experience or a timeline where they actually don't align to that highest frequency. Maybe we chose to stay in a relationship that wasn't aligned. Maybe we chose to stay at a job that we hated. Maybe we chose to stay in codependent patterns or to stay in toxic dynamics. Maybe we chose things that actually kept us from that highest timeline. Well, it was a timeline that our soul chose and led and lived in that allow us to really grow. It wasn't the highest and most joyful expression. So every timeline that we choose in our life has so much value. I really want to just reiterate this point. I want us all to know this point and understand this point. There isn't essentially a better timeline than others. There's a more pleasureful, abundant, joyful, expansive timeline than another one, but it doesn't mean that one timeline is better than others. From a soul level perspective, there is no good or bad. Your soul just enjoys the ride, enjoys the journey, enjoys experiencing things. Your soul could actually really enjoy a timeline that you actually hate because it's growing so much. The inspiration for life and this experience on earth is growth. It's not being comfortable. It's not having easy. It's not having joy. It is growth. I'm not saying that your soul wants you to be miserable or your soul doesn't want you to be happy, but it really sees all of the beauty of life and being a human as good and lovely and powerful. And it just likes to be here for the experience. It loves Earth School. So there's no timeline that's better or worse than others. When we judge that, it's kind of from the human level perspective of this is good or this is bad. Each timeline has value. A lifetime that I lived maybe in the past or an experience that I had in the past on a lower timeline actually provided me with a lot of contrast that helped me grow a lot. So, the example of when I was choosing to be in a relationship that didn't align with my highest timeline, that wasn't aligned to my most expressive and expansive self, was the relationship that was helping me grow maybe the most. The relationships that have been the hardest for me and on the hardest timeline have given me maybe the most growth in my life. We can say that a lot of the pain in our life that we've experienced has been the pull to make us go forward. So, oftentimes, for many of us, we've had the pain be the motivator rather than the vision pulling us forward. And so when we do this timeline work, when we talk about timelines, my goal now, as you move into this new level of consciousness, this new experience here on earth, is that you guys are allowing your vision for your future to pull you forward instead of the pain to push you forward. So when we have the pain pushing us forward in life, it means that we have a sense of running from the problem or running from the person or running from the scenario rather than being like, God, I don't know what you have in store for me. I don't know what the vision is, but I'm willing to step forward into the void. I'm willing to go into the unknown because I have the vision that's pulling me forward. This is when we are in the creator dynamic. We are in the creation mode. We are in the mode of following our soul's calling, which sometimes we don't know where our soul is taking us. This is the part about being in the unknown and being on a timeline that's new, that can be uncomfortable, is that oftentimes we're in the void. The void can be really uncomfortable. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what we're doing. There's new characters involved. There's new players involved. Things look different and new. And when we shift timelines into a new reality, when you're actually up leveling your life, you don't know the levels of the game. You don't know the characters in the game. You don't know the rules of the game. You don't really know the scenery, the set and setting of the game. So you can feel pretty uncomfortable. So part of going to a new timeline is being okay in the void of the unknown and the discomfort of living and existing on this new timeline. It can be pretty uncomfortable to be in a different place. When we have imposter syndrome, it's actually a good thing. And I'll tell you why. When you timeline hop into a new timeline and a new experience, it's very normal to not know how to move and how to play and how to operate. As an example, I have been in spaces and places with some of the greatest teachers, spiritual gurus, and guides, and I've felt imposter syndrome. I felt really uncomfortable. But now that I know that I'm in the room, my energy and soul pulled me into the room, my vision pulled me into the room. And as I'm acclimating to this new timeline, as I'm acclimating to the new energy of this group, it might feel uncomfortable for a little bit. I'm figuring out the lay of the land. I'm figuring out these players. I'm figuring out the new characters. I'm sort of figuring out what it feels like at this new level of the game. But when we have that discomfort of imposter syndrome, of feeling uncomfortable in the new timeline, that is a good thing. When we are comfortable with everything, when we are comfortable with our life, that is not where things grow. The comfort zone is comfortable, but it is not where you will grow. You will grow in the discomfort. You will grow in the friction. It doesn't mean we can't grow in pleasure and ease and joy and love. We very much can. But for most of us, we need that discomfort to push us out of our current reality. But now I want us to be pulled by the vision we have for our lives. So our goal is to have not pain push us forward, but have our vision pulling us forward for our life and having our vision pull us forward to that new timeline. We will never get on the new timeline if we're having pain push us into the new timeline. It's always going to be the co-creation and the magic of our vision that gets us to that new place and that timeline of abundance, joy, creativity, expression, all of the goodness that life has to offer. When we're transitioning to a new timeline, the pulling of the vision is actually going to pull us through karmic experiences and blocks to get us on that new timeline. So, this is another part of the timeline work that I really want to hone in on and I really want to get specific about is that you will have to go through initiations, through tests, as my friend Lacey Phillips says. And you really, really have to go through these experiences that are going to push you to get to that new timeline. Timeline hopping isn't always as simple as choosing the new reality. We can, with our concerted intention and focus, A Course in Miracles talks about this, and Law of One talks about this. With our 100% concerted attention, we can switch timelines and realities. But for most of us, it will take us through clearing karma and blockages to get to that new timeline and that new reality. As an example, again, with my divorce, it's such a good, clear one to see. I had to clear so much karma with my ex. I had to clear so much karma with my mother and my father because a lot of the patterns that I was in, codependency, narcissism, self-abandonment, self-erasure, were from my family. So I had to clear all of that. I had to clear that in my relationship in order to move through the blockages that were in the way of our relationship and to move through that relationship in a way so that I could be free from it. So when we leave a relationship and choose to exit that timeline, we should be clearing the blockages and the karma before we get out of that relationship. That can help us leave that timeline cleanly and clearly. And when we do that, we oftentimes don't have any connection or cord to that person or that relationship anymore. So often when we leave relationships and we feel that feeling of like, there's still work here, or there's still something here, or there's still some sort of connection, that can be because we haven't done all the spiritual work within the relationship container to be able to move on fully and completely from that relationship. They always say that men come back around. Men will always reach out months later, a year later after relationships end. When women are done, we're done. And I think a lot of this is because men are not consciously working through karma or blockages in the relationship like women are. Women are the spiritual barometer of relationships. They are monitoring the spiritual health, the emotional health, the psychic health of relationships throughout the relationship. And so they will know when things are off or things need to be tuned. And they will also know to go through their own path and their own dark night of the soul and their own shadows when they're in the relationship container before leaving the relationship. If we feel like there's something still there in the relationship, oftentimes it's because we didn't go through enough processing in the relationship before we left. But back to timelines. So when you're in the relationship and you're clearing the blockages and the karma, when you leave that relationship, it's so much easier to step onto the new timeline because you feel clear about everything that you went through in that relationship. So you can choose, I've left this person. I don't know where this timeline is going, but I'm excited to see where it pulls me. I want you guys to really get something. And I'm sitting up straight. I'm like fully focused on you when I say this, is God will not always show you your entire life path and vision, but God will always show you the next step. You will be shown the next step in your life and the next step after that. But what you need to do is first follow the first step. Your full life vision, the book of your life, is never going to be shown to you. That is why we're here on earth, is to see what we can create, to see what timelines we hop in and out of, to see what happens. Our life is really this beautiful, powerful adventure that we have no idea how it will end. That's why we're here, is for the mythic drama of life. And we have no idea what's going to happen. And when we so hard try to control our experience and try to control where our life goes and what happens and who we meet and who we end up with and how many kids we have and what job we have, that not only takes the fun out of it, but it's just not a part of this process. The best things in life oftentimes happen through surprise. Almost 30 to me was a complete and utter surprise. I would have never thought that I would be on a podcast for my career and job. I would never thought I would be a coach as part of my job. I would never thought that I would live in Los Angeles and live the way that I live. And all of the most beautiful things in my life are surprises. So when we can lean into feeling good and feeling aligned and feeling in the truth of who we are, and then trusting our intuition to take us on that first step, that's going to be the greatest indicator of getting on the next potential timeline. Feeling good is going to be the indicator of where you are from a timeline perspective. Trusting the next best step is going to be the indicator of getting on the next highest timeline. It's not expecting perfection. It's not looking at someone else's vision board and following that. It's not writing out what we want to manifest from an ego perspective and following that. It's following your most aligned self, following when you feel good and listening to your intuition. That is the guide to pull you forward onto that new timeline that you want to live in.
Okay, the new year is upon us. And if you're anything like me, I do a little like purge of my cabinets. And I realize that I need to make room for my monthly shipment of my Symbiotica. Y'all, if you do not have a supplement lineup that like just makes you feel phenomenal and that you can really trust, I highly recommend looking at Symbiotica. Their lineup of products are so freaking phenomenal. I just wanted to shout out a few right now. I absolutely love their glutathione. This is a liposomal forms and it tastes so good. It's a citrus berry. This is a master antioxidant and it also has PQQ and CoQ10. So this is just really incredible for the stresses on our bodies, the world that we live in now, it's inevitable, but glutathione is so remarkable. I also love their vitamin C. This is 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, liposomal delivery, citrus vanilla flavor. Oh man, it also has biotin in it, so your skin is going to thank you as well as your immunity. And then finally, I mean, I have so many that I take, but the B12 and B6 is such an incredible blend. The most bioactive forms of vitamin B12, three of them, plus vitamin B6 and L-methylfolate, which is a critically important vitamin for proper methylation and cellular detoxification. And again, this liposomal delivery that Symbiotica has just perfected is super bioavailable for the body, so it just improves absorption. I'm obsessed with this brand. The last thing I'll shout out is their nootropic creamer. I add this to my coffee every single day and I'm so happy I do. This really kind of curbs the like jittery effect of coffee and it is freaking delicious. It's just so creamy, yummy. You're going to love it, the nootropic creamer. So, our listeners, I'm pumped for you because you are going to get an incredible 20% off. 20% off right now. I highly recommend just having, your products come on subscription so you don't forget or run out. You can save up to 20% off site wide with our code almost 30. Just go to symbiotica.com/almost 30 and use the code almost 30 for 20% off site wide. I'm excited for you. Enjoy.
Timeline jumping or timeline hopping, which people talk about, is the metaphysical practice of shifting your consciousness from your current reality to the more desired one. So, when we talk about our current reality, where we're living now in this now moment, all of us have a vision for where we want to go in life, who we want to be, how we want to experience ourselves, where we want to live, and the career we want to have. It's really beautiful to have that. Desire is why you came here. It's totally fine to have desires in your life. It's a really beautiful thing. As creators of reality, as co creators of the universe and this experience, it's a part of who we are. Desire is not bad, desire is good. Desire is our highest self pulling us forward. But we need to be mindful that in order to create this reality, we need to not always escape our current one. To timeline hop or timeline jump into that current reality, we have to love, honor, and accept our current reality right now in this now moment for where it is. that full acceptance collapses time completely, which enables us to create the desired reality from a soul level, from a heart level, and step into the new experience. If we are hating our current reality, the energy of hating our current reality and wanting to run into another one is never going to create the energy of that new timeline reality that you want to jump into. I think when people hear the word jump, they think of like running and jumping from the experience. And that's not really what we want. We want the timeline shift. We want the mosey onto the new timeline. We want the gallivant or glide into the new timeline. And we want to move into a new reality that's desired, but aligned to our soul. It's not just desired from the ego level, it's more aligned to our soul. So, by altering our vibration, our mindset, and our beliefs, you can shift into the new reality. So, when we think about timeline hopping as a phrase, we can even think it sounds super easy, but it's actually not as easy as we think. And creating a life that we love, or being in the perfect reality, or being in our desired reality, I can imagine we all understand that takes some work around our mindset, around our vibration, around our beliefs. So something I was talking about in my broadcast channel on my Instagram is at it's Krista, it's ITSKRISTA. And I have my broadcast channel, which I drop into every single day. I was talking about timelines and something that I really want people to get around timelines. And that is that there is your desired timeline, there is your current timeline, and there is actually other timelines at play in reality. And those other timelines can be things like the collective timeline of Earth. So the timeline that our current Earth trajectory is on, Gaia is on her own timeline. Our universe is on its own timeline. Our human evolution is on its own timeline. There have been various times in history where those timelines have completely shifted, like when our DNA got shifted back in the day, or when the Egyptians came online, or when there was figures like Jesus Christ that came onto the planet, which completely shifted our timelines, like COVID completely shifting our timelines. So there's giant collective timelines that impact us as humans plugged into the collective consciousness. And there's also ancestral timelines. So the ancestral lineage that you grew up in, or the ancestral lineage that you're a part of, has its own timeline. Groups of people have very specific timelines in history that they live on, that they walk on, that they live with. This could be an easier timeline. This could be a harder timeline. This could be a more joyful timeline. This could be a more abundant timeline. This could be a timeline with more trauma healing involved, or with more contrast. So there's a lot of different timelines that are at play when we talk about timelines. It's not just Krista Williams in her experience being like, I want this, I want that. I'm going to hop this timeline over to my multi-million-dollar mansion in Malibu, living my life, doing these things, da 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 da. Sure, that could happen. Anything is possible in our time space reality. But I actually have a lot of other timelines that are co creating and playing into my reality. I think about this a lot with my work, that I've been talking about concepts in spirituality for a long time. I've been talking about meditation for a long time. I've been talking about sober curiosity for a long time, masculine, feminine, empath, narcissism, codependency, body liberation, body love for quite a while. And I can be talking about this in my own reality, and I attract amazing people like you to listen to process with, to share with, to teach to. But if the collective is not at the same timeline as me, if the collective has to keep up or catch up to understand and be at the same vibrational frequency to receive the messages that I'm sharing, then that is a timeline issue. So for a lot of us, and a lot of you star seeds, a lot of you empaths, a lot of you healers, teachers, and leaders, a lot of the amazing people that are conscious enough to be, listening to this information, your timeline might be further along than other people. And I'm not saying that from a bad or good perspective, but you could be further along in consciousness than most people. And that's just a fact. You guys are probably more conscious than most people. So for a lot of you, there are timelines in the conscious reality, or the timeline of humanity has to catch up to you. You guys are leading the charge. You guys are trailblazers. You guys are more further advanced from a spiritual level than most people. So the collective timeline has to catch up to you for you to maybe stand in your power or your purpose in the way that you want. I've really had to alchemize and understand that, especially as a lot of things that I've been talking about for a while have now become more popular or more normalized. I have to remember that as a leader on the consciousness front, that it's going to be like that. My timeline will be a little bit different than other people, but I have to trust that the timeline of the collective will catch up. So, the reason why I'm saying that about the collective timeline and the ancestral timeline as examples is that when we think about timelines, timeline hopping, timeline shifting, it's not just our timeline or desire. There's so much that goes along with it. So, there's collective ancestral as examples. There's other types of timelines that sort of come in and out. Like I said, Gaia, our universe, whatever. There's also our family have certain timelines for us, but the way that we can support ourselves in getting on our highest vibrational timeline or our highest timeline in our lives is by cleaning up our vibration, by checking in our beliefs, and by focusing on our mindset. So I want to talk about the things that we can do to transform or timeline jump or timeline hop or get us on our highest timeline for 2025. But I first want to talk a little bit about how the Akashic Records plays into timelines. So, if you are familiar with the Akashic Records are essentially a map of all spiritual timelines. The Akashic Records are so cool because it really has like a library of all potential timelines. So, it has the potential timeline of you listening to this podcast and you not listening to this podcast, of you opening the door for that guy and you not opening the door for that guy, of you tripping on the sidewalk and you not tripping on the sidewalk. There is so much there in the Akashic, but it's crazy because it holds all of your timelines. It offers guidance in the Akashic Records on how to navigate, heal, and shift between them. So when people can tap in or tune into the Akashic Records, they're really able to see all of the timelines and able to heal them or navigate them. It's really powerful to get a reading or to figure out how to do it yourself. You can do it yourself as well. So the Akashic Records and spiritual timelines are really interconnected in the way that it's a spiritual database of information, of your timelines, and of options you can choose in this reality that you are co-creating with the universe and God. And the Akashic is cool because it holds the collective wisdom, not just of yourself, but all souls. So you can see the interplay of our collective consciousness, of other souls, and of your own soul on your path. So here's a little bit how highest timeline and Akashic Records can relate. First is that the Akashic Records is a blueprint of all the timelines. So you can see and relate to all the timelines that exist in our time space because spiritual timelines are the various life paths or realities that we can access and experience. So when you timeline jump, you're essentially accessing a different record in the Akashic field. So the way that the Akashic Records and timelines relate is that the Akashic Records is essentially a blueprint of all the timelines. The Akashic Records are often described as a metaphysical library containing every thought, every emotion, action, and experience of every soul throughout all lifetimes. So this includes past, present, and potential future timelines. So basically, this is the record of all timelines that exist. So when we think about timeline hopping, we can think about the Akashic as the place that stores the database of all timelines. So the highest timeline that you're wanting to step into can exist already in the Akashic Record, which is pretty cool. And when you timeline jump, you can essentially access a different record from the Akashic field. So it's a really cool thing to think about having trust and faith that the timeline that you want to go to in 2025 already exists in the Akashic. It's already there. If you've thought it, it already exists in some place, and we just need to choose it. There is also a practice with Akashic record readers that you can practice timeline jumping by using the Akashic, by using this experience to see the blocks in the way of you choosing that new timeline or seeing the beliefs that are in the way of you being on that highest timeline experience. In essence, the Akashic Records serve as a map for all spiritual timelines, which offers guidance on how to navigate, heal, and shift between them. So if you've ever felt drawn to explore the Akashic, I think this is a good one. But let me tell you a little bit more about how we can timeline hop or how we can timeline shift in 2025. And I'll let you guys kind of dig into your Akashic Records a little bit more by getting a reading with someone, by reading up on the Akashic, or by just understanding that it's this really beautiful blueprint for all the timelines. And it's this really beautiful library of all the timelines that you have available. and all the timelines that we have available as a collective. So, how are we going to be timeline hopping? How are we going to get on our highest timeline in 2025? So, the first thing is by focusing first on our own vibration, on our own experience, on our own reality. And what does this mean, my dear friends, my angels? It means that we are going to get out of codependent dynamics, that we are going to let go of toxic relationships, and we are going to choose our own experience over the experience of others. For so many of you, what is keeping you back from your highest timeline is the relationships that you're in and the people that you're around and the way that you're prioritizing everyone else's needs over your own. You will never be on the highest, nor will you ever be on your timeline if you're prioritizing everyone else over yourself. This means you're saying no. This means you have boundaries. This means that you're letting go of people pleasing. This means you're letting go of perfectionist tendencies. And this means you are stopping caring so much what people think about you or what your perception of what people think about you is. You have to let go of everyone else to allow yourself to align to your highest timeline. So your vibration is aligned to your soul frequency and not being used to attune to everyone else, to stay safe, to read their minds, to people please, to all these things. You guys need to get out of everyone else's field, everyone else's experience, and these relationships that you no longer need to align to your highest timeline. That is the biggest thing, bar freaking none. What we're also going to do is we are going to follow what feels good. God and the universe is showing you where to go. Within every second in your reality, there is no unknown in your path if you follow what feels good for you. It is so simple. Follow that spark, that joy, that interest, that excitement, that thing that you're into, crochet, knitting, fishing, spiritual work, crystals, tarot, the Bible, hiking, whatever it is that you want to do, follow that. That joy and that vibration of your alignment will lead you to the highest timeline experience possible. Doing the podcast with Lindsay, starting it on our closet floors, was my greatest joy, my greatest expression, and was me following my joy. I was not attached to the outcome at all. I had no idea where the timeline of starting almost 30 would take me. I just knew that it felt good. And the feeling of feeling good is all I needed to know. And the feeling of feeling good is all you need to know that you're on your highest timeline. Because what we think is that when we get to the highest timeline, we're going to feel good, but we want to feel good all the way. So follow the feeling of feeling good in your life. If you're having a hard time feeling into that at all, what I suggest is disconnecting from social media, from your phone, spending time alone, and spending time in nature so that you can pull yourself out of the energy and consciousness of other people and reconnect with you and reconnect with what makes you feel good and what your desire is. And I'll say with that, if when you connect with what feels good, you have judgment of yourself or you're shaming or blaming yourself, we got to love that inner critic. We got to love that part of you that's keeping you from being happy and feeling good. And we got to liberate that inner critic from feeling like she's keeping you safe by judging you and just let yourself be free. Let yourself be free. We're also going to do the work to look at our beliefs and our subconscious beliefs. So looking at our conscious beliefs and our subconscious beliefs. So what are the subconscious beliefs that are keeping you on your timeline? I'll talk about my relationship again because it's such a clear example. The subconscious beliefs that I was living in during that time was, it's not safe to be me. I'm too much. I need to be quiet. I shouldn't speak. I am not worthy. I am annoying, whatever the things are. If I have these subconscious beliefs running in the background, that is creating my reality and the timeline that I'm on. But when I do the subconscious work to look at my beliefs, to look at the things that are sort of running in the background by becoming conscious of them, that's when I can shift my reality. So for me, that was, okay, I'm not happy in my relationship. I'm not happy in my life. Why is that? What is creating this dynamic where I don't feel safe, as an example? So I'm noticing I don't feel safe in this relationship. What's the belief? I am not safe. I am not safe. How can I go back to that belief? What is making me not feel safe? Is it that person, or is it I'm not safe within myself? How can I reprogram that belief to tell myself I'm safe, to come home to myself, to make myself believe that no matter where I'm at, I'm safe, no matter what relationship I'm in, I'm safe. And once we can reprogram the subconscious belief to I am safe at the baseline, that subconscious belief is going to create the reality that we're in. Maybe it's the subconscious belief of I'm too much. I had that so much where I felt like I was too much. I was too deep. I was too loud. I was too strong. I was too powerful, whatever, which was creating a reality where I was not any of those things. Once I can look at those subconscious beliefs, reprogram them to believe that I am powerful, it is good that I'm a lot, all of these things, that subconscious is going to create the new timeline. So we can consciously create our new timelines, of course, but the subconscious, if the subconscious is not there because the subconscious is the energy current that's creating the new timeline, we're never going to get to the highest timeline. And the most important thing that I want to say about timeline hopping beyond our beliefs, our vibration, and our subconscious beliefs is that we cannot be running from our lives to a new timeline unless we accept our lives as they are and learn to love ourselves as we are. This is the hardest thing I think for people to do, is to have self-acceptance be the propeller to self-improvement. How can we love ourselves so much that we know that we deserve a different experience? I love myself so much right now that I know I deserve to live in a beautiful home, in a relationship that I love. And I can accept that where I'm at is really beautiful, where I'm at is really powerful, and where I'm at is really purposeful. And I can love myself in this now moment no matter what. Even if nothing changes, I am happy in this now moment. And that energy really, really opens up the highest timeline for us to step into. So we love ourselves now into the new timeline rather than hating ourselves into the new timeline or running into the new timeline because we're trying to get out of our reality. I want to say this about the collective timelines and the ancestral timelines, that for the collective timelines, we can do some work on in the Akashic, or we can do some healing work on, or prayer work. I think prayer is great for supporting the new collective timelines. For ancestral work, you can do ancestral healing. You can look at your ancestry and see what sort of beliefs were running, what sort of programs were running, what sort of consciousnesses you were attached to. And you can still live in your desired highest timeline, even if the collective and ancestral is not really working out in the way that you want. But it just means we need to look at the energetics, the beliefs, and the frequency behind this while you are doing your own work. So there could be different nuances and levers to play within this sort of realm and reality that you have to think about when you're stepping into your new timeline, but it's still possible. My hope and intention for you is to truly live on your highest timeline. And that doesn't always mean that you're living in a mansion and that everything is working out perfectly or everything looks beautiful from a materialism perspective, but you are living a life that you love and you are enjoying yourself and this experience. The highest timeline is the timeline that we accept, that we enjoy living in, and that we feel freedom and liberation in. All of our highest timelines look and feel different because they are specific to our souls. And when we can listen to our souls and get quiet and tune in, that's when we can really step into that new reality and that highest timeline. So I hope this was helpful for thinking about timeline hopping, for getting on our highest timeline in the new year, and that you got some information about the Akashic records and how it relates to timelines, that you now understand timeline hopping and you understand how to do it, when to do it, what is influencing it, and that you know that this is something that we can use as a spiritual lever to pull and something that can support us in understanding how to live a life that we love from a place of our heart and our soul. I love doing these solos with you. It's one of my most favorite things. I can just drop in and just cruise and channel information and share with you. I'm so grateful that I can do this for my job. My name is Krista Williams. I'm one half of Almost 30 Podcast. I am a transformational coach. I'm a speaker. I have programs and courses like Metamorphosis and the Life Edit. And I'm really here to show you what's possible and help expand your consciousness. I'm so grateful to do what I do. And I will see you guys either on my website or Instagram if you want more. It's Krista on Instagram. And I share things like this on my page and in my broadcast channel. And then on my website, you can find all of my retreats, like the Metamorphosis Retreat or True Essence, or my Fully Expressed Retreat for voices. And you can find more information about working with me. Again, I am sending you so much love on this new timeline in 2025, in this new experience here on Earth. And I am just loving you and honoring you all along the way. I'll see you on our new timeline in 2025.